Morning, I am Brian Downs, and this is a Republic if you can keep it. I'm coming to you from Orlando, Florida, a few minutes to 9 a.m. in the morning of July 20th, 2025. Or am I? Because this video is about the nature of truth and how Donald J. Trump has finally become mired in his own goo. And of course, what we're talking about is Epstein. Donald Trump, pathological liar, was born into wealth and therefore early in life found himself in a place where he could simply lie and surround himself with people who were willing to believe his lies because he was writing the checks. He could hire people who were willing to believe and fire people who didn't believe. And in this way, convince himself that he was a demigod of exceptional intelligence and so on, in spite of the fact that his business career is a series of failing upwards. And in this way, he became a man who deals in fantasy, obfuscation, smokescreens, and lies. Simply assert that a thing is true, behave like it's true, and if you throw enough money around, at least some people will cooperate. Donald Trump, of course, also a man with a long history of what I will delicately call sexual misadventure. See E. Jean Carroll, see the wives, see the girlfriends, see Stormy Daniels, see the Grab 'em tape. And so, Trump has had a long run as a fantasist. But finally, now, he's trapped in his own goo. Finally, now, his contradictory statements about the Epstein files and what's in them and what's not and whether they exist and whether they are fakes. And if they are fakes, why didn't he mention it before now when Epstein was investigated and charged and arrested under the first Trump administration? If all this information is fake, then why was Epstein arrested? If all the information is fake, as I am reluctantly forced to admit Elon Musk has pointed out, if all this information was fake, why did Epstein commit suicide in prison? So, Trump's public position on all of this has been a cascade of nonsense, and because this particular scandal is about sex with underage girls, MAGA is in revolt. Trump has been publicly berating his past followers for being foolish. He doesn't need their support if they're going to believe the Epstein story. Although apparently his followers are supposed to believe that Epstein was guilty, but that Trump, who it is well known was a good friend of Epstein's, there's a mountain of evidence to prove that. Trump, again, a man with a history of sexual misconduct, good friend of Epstein's, but trust me, Trump never involved himself in any of the criminality that Epstein went to prison for. So, this blizzard of contradiction and lies has finally got MAGA fed up, and they are rebelling. Trump's approval rating is cratering. Of course, it was already cratering because of his incompetence and malfeasance and dishonesty on any number of subjects. The fact that he ought to be impeached, and the increasingly obvious fact that the 25th Amendment ought to be employed to remove him from office as no longer capable of fulfilling the duties of the presidency. His mind is turning into rancid cottage cheese and old motor oil. All that said, here's my point. And this is the most fun for me. There's no way out of this. It doesn't matter what the government has, what the government doesn't have, what is the truth, what isn't the truth. At this point, of course, Trump has been laying siege to the concept of truth for a decade and more. It doesn't matter what gets released or what doesn't. The government could release every bite of information they have on Jeffrey Epstein, and people would insist that there was more, or that there had been more, or that the files had been edited. I mean, frankly, we live in a world where there are people who insist that the world is flat and no one ever walked on the moon. So Trump is now trapped in his own goo because people love conspiracies, and he's now finally publicly at the heart of a conspiracy theory for which he can be punished. Why this one? Why not any of his innumerable other crimes and outrages? Well, it's because this one is fairly simple. It's about sex, it's about underage girls, it's about prostitution. And there's no spin you can put on it. When you're tearing down vital government services with the Department of Government Efficiency, you can say, oh, well, we're fighting waste, fraud, and abuse. Aren't you against waste, fraud, and abuse? And while that spin is idiotic, you can make it and people will buy it. This is not something you can spin. You can't say that you were battling waste, fraud, and abuse when you were paying 15-year-olds to give massages. So, there is no escape. There is no truth possible, or nothing the government can do or say, especially this government, will ever be widely regarded or accepted as the truth. And I love that. There's a great poetic justice in it. Donald Trump, who has done so well for himself, pretending to be a genius, pretending to be a businessman, pretending to be a politician, pretending to be anything other than a toddler who wants to stuff his face while having his ass kissed, is finally suffocating in the goo.